Hello and welcome to episode 61 of Working Towards Our Purpose. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the abundance mindset versus the scarcity mindset, topic that I'm excited about. I was looking back through the episodes and I couldn't believe that I didn't do an episode on this already. Lots of thoughts on it. But before we get into that, I'm going to slow down a little bit and check in with ourselves, see where we're at today. Check in with yourself as I do the same for me. Yeah, and for me, I'm feeling abundant. I'm feeling like I have a lot of ideas and lots of thoughts, which is all good. It could leave me a little sort of scattered, so I'm really trying to slow down for this episode because there's a lot that I want to cover. But yeah, overall feeling good, feeling grateful, feeling like I have some good people in my life that can reflect things back to me in a way that's super helpful to me. So feeling really grateful for that. And so let's get into today's episode about abundance versus scarcity. So first off, I just want to sort of define like what scarcity is, what it means to me, and what abundance is and what it means to me. And then we'll sort of get into a couple different stories that I want to talk about, and then a couple different steps to be able to move you towards an abundance mindset versus a scarcity. What is a scarcity mindset? It's thinking small. It's for me, a lot of times it's thinking out of fear. If you project yourself into the future, you could, be afraid, I won't have enough money. I won't have a job. I won't have a person in my life. Like thinking like things are going to go away. Or I think the biggest, like when you look up scarcity versus abundance on the internet, a lot of like money conversations come up. So a lot of people will tell you, if you have an abundance mindset of money, it will keep you richer versus poorer. And a scarcity mindset is sort of like a poor mentality. By thinking that there's never enough money, you kind of always attract that sort of energy, and you attract that sort of financial into your life to always think of a poor mindset, of a scarcity mindset. So a lot of it like talks around money, and I think like the first time that I started reading about this concept of abundance versus scarcity was in a money book, in a financial book. But that's not going to limit our conversation to just that. I think it could be applied to any area of your life, really. Scarcity just being like, sort of living out of fear and expecting the worst to happen, that sort of thing. And I think for me growing up, that's kind of how I was taught to think about things. And, some of that comes from parental stuff. Some of that comes from other family systems. Some of that comes from schooling and our educational systems. It's not surprising, I guess, that I had that sort of mindset growing up. I remember this one story that my dad used to tell us as kids, that I think relates to this, is he used to say that his grandfather, I think it was, or maybe it was his father. No, it was his grandfather. Not important, but he used to put like his savings in a freezer and wrap them in tinfoil and write fish on it, and like leave whatever extra money he had in a freezer, because he was, maybe didn't trust banks, or just afraid somebody was going to take it or steal it maybe. That's just sort of an interesting mentality. And of course, like, I know where it comes from. It comes from not having, and from perhaps living through, I think that time period was about the Depression era. So like living through that and like being scarred by past experiences. So it's like, I can understand how you would get to that scarcity mindset. But it's a limiting mindset, and it hinders you and it keeps you held back. And let's get into what an abundance mindset is. Abundance mindset is the opposite of that. It's thinking that things will thinking of things in a positive way. I guess if you were to use the half glass, the glass of water of being half full or half empty, an abundance mindset would be, oh, it's half full, and scarcity would be half empty. So yeah, thinking about abundance is like things are, it's sort of for me like a trusting that things will work out, a trusting that you will find what you need, and sort of thinking that there's always more, and instead of thinking that there's always less. And so to me, it's the opposite of fear. It's not living in fear, but in living with a sense of trust and a sense of like somebody has your back. There's something out there that has your back, and you'll figure it out eventually. And, I think if we look around us, a lot of us can say that. A lot of us can say that we have supportive friends and family. And even if you don't have, supportive family, there's probably somebody in your life who's supportive of you and who cares about you, and who can offer support and doesn't have to like let you go through life alone. And I think that's kind of, for me, what scarcity is like going through life very alone and isolated, thinking only about yourself, and sort of like herding everything, huddling everything, gathering resources because you're afraid that they're going to be gone. Whereas abundance is much more communal and much more living together with people and accepting help and offering help. And to me, I would much rather live with an abundance mindset than a scarcity. Ideally, I definitely float back between the two. And yeah, so where this episode kind of came from was last week I was, sort of just doubting a lot of things, letting the imposter syndrome creep in, thinking about like episodes. And I was thinking like, oh man, I'm up to episode 60 now. And like, am I going to run out of ideas? Like I was kind of, I guess I was sort of tapped out on ideas last week. And I sort of started thinking like, okay, I'm making a little bit of traction in YouTube. I'm getting some subscribers now. This is great. And then I started being like, I have to actually continue to do this. Otherwise it's not going to work out. And for some reason, yeah, that triggered like my scarcity mindset. And at some point I remembered abundance versus scarcity. And I was like, oh yeah, you can decide and you can choose to think about this in an abundant mindset instead of a scarcity mindset. So in just doing that, it gave me the idea for this episode. So, that's kind of like a small little example of proof right there. That when I start thinking that things are finite and lacking, then, that's kind of just what you see. But when you can open up your mind and open up your vision to abundance, you can see more things that are right in front of you. And a couple things I want to say to like further illustrate this, if I haven't already. But there was one time I got an email from my friend Barb. I was on her email list. I am on her email list. And she sent an email about something like, it was about abundance, and it was a moment when I needed to hear it. And Barb was also a guest on this podcast. So if you haven't listened to the episode, go back and listen to it. But she sent an email saying like how abundant the universe is, and the universe is, scientifically, literally expanding as we speak. Like that's how, I'm not like huge into science of the universe, but the theory is that, from the Big Bang, the universe has expanded and it's continually expanding and continually getting bigger. And like, if that's not an example of abundance, that's like, I don't know. So the way that she said it was like, that is the universe, and that is just pure abundance, and everything kind of like, you can trace everything kind of back to that. I'm doing a really bad job of articulating what she said, but when I read it, I was like, wow, that's so correct. Everything is abundant. And if you could think of the universe as being abundant, as growing in every minute, then we could think of ourselves like that too. So that one maybe a little more abstract, and probably I should have reread that email before I tried to restate it to you. But the other one, I was reading a Native American book about the moon cycles, and I really like reading about Native culture and religion and spirituality. I think that there's a lot of things that I resonate with and a lot of wisdom that I find. And there was this one story about a beaver in this book, and the beaver wanted to build a bigger dam, a bigger home for its like growing family. And it wanted to build like this dream home. And it was talking to like an elder or something and saying like this problem that this beaver had, that it was collecting all this wood, but then it would get taken away or it would get stolen, and they could never accumulate all the wood that they needed in order to build this dream home. And the elder's wisdom to them was, you don't need to accumulate all of the wood right now. Start with what you have, and the rest will come when you need it. And so the beaver left, and it took that advice and it started building with what it had. And then 2 weeks later, it came back and was like, wow, you were right. I started building. I only had enough for one room. And then once I was finished with that one, I was able to get the wood that I needed. It came into my life. I found it. It was easier to find. And we were able to complete the dream home. And, the moral of the story being like, start with what you have, and what you need will come into your life. It's abundant. And yeah, I just really like that story of also another just great reminder of like, you can start where you're at. Like you don't need to have everything. You don't need to have all the resources right now. You can start with whatever you have. So that was a really cool story too. I think that sort of showed abundance, and more so like the trust of abundance. Like you don't need to have everything collected and tucked away to build something. You could build with what you have, and then trust that what you need will come to you. And yeah, and I've noticed that in my own life. The more that you trust, the more whatever it is that you need will come into your life. And yeah, thinking of so many different other stories that also resonate with this. I'm trying to think about like not overwhelming you with the story of saying the same thing. But I think one more quick story that I want to say is when I was leaving corporate America, I remember having a conversation with this person that I sort of looked up to as a mentor, unofficial mentor. And she was an entrepreneur, and I worked on her podcast. And I remember telling her I was leaving, or I was thinking about leaving, but I was like scared. And she said something to the effect of like, it feels like you're making a big jump off of a cliff, but make the jump even if you don't know where you're going to land, because something will catch you. And I remember like trusting her in those words and being like, okay, she's done it before. She's speaking from experience. I should trust her. And then looking back, like when I did decide to make that change, it was like, yeah, I was fine. Like, did my business work out the way that I wanted it to? No, but it led to other things that I would have never found and never done. This podcast, for example, I would have never found this podcast if I didn't do that. And yeah, I think that's an example of just like believing and hoping and putting trust and faith in something that will like catch you after making like a big jump or a big move. And yeah, I mean, I could say now that it's like, it's definitely worked out for me. I would never intentionally go back to the corporate world. I can never see myself going back there. I never want to say never, you never know what happens in your life, but yeah, so much has changed since I made that decision, for the better. And yeah, so that's enough about, abundance. I think the last thing I want to say is like, even just noticing like my real world right now. Last week, I was living in a scarcity mindset. I was not having ideas. I was sad. I was like nervous, scared, all these like negative emotions. This week, after thinking about abundance and talking about it, I'm much more like invigorated, and I have ideas that I want to do. I have new things that I thought of this week that are like, oh, this is a great idea. I'm going to try to focus on this now. And just like, yeah, completely different mentality and excitement for like what I'm doing. And yeah, it's like such a good example of like how you can live if you decide to do, to live in a scarcity mindset, or how you can live if you live in an abundance mindset. And it's all a practice, and nothing is perfect. I mean, I found myself again, going back between these two different states of being, and you can't always be perfect. But how do you get more towards abundance? How do you practice more abundance? And like, this was a hard one for me. I was deciding like whether or not to like come up with steps for this one, because it is hard. It's like, that's why I think I spent so long describing what it is, because I think like it's more so just kind of thinking about it than like, you can't like, there's not too many things you could do to like practice it, but I challenge myself to come up with steps and to come up with like real things that help me, so that hopefully they can help you. So let's get into the steps of how you can switch from a scarcity mindset to an abundance, or live more in an abundance mindset. So the first step one is to surround yourself with people who do have an abundance mindset, or do have the ability to be in an abundance mindset. Just like my example of my entrepreneur mentor, she was showing me an example of an abundance mindset, and I was able to trust her, and then sort of like live, what's that word? Living through someone, I forget what the word's called, but like living through her and being like, okay, well, she trusts, so then I can trust her because I trust her. So surrounding yourself with people who have an abundance mindset, I think is the most important thing that you can do, especially if you are living mostly with a scarcity mindset. I think for me, an example of surrounding yourself with good examples is reading. And like, I read a lot, and I read about this topic, and I was like, okay, this is new to me, but now I'm introducing these ideas into my life. And it was really helpful for me in that time to keep seeing this idea of scarcity versus abundance pop up, and to believe it to be true. Another thing that happens when you surround yourself with people, you can have conversations about it, and to talk about a scarcity versus abundance. And I think that talking about it helps you embody it, and helps you believe it, and helps you see ways of trying to be more abundant. So yeah. And then the second thing would be to give yourself examples. So, if you don't have maybe people in your life, or maybe you're shy, or maybe you, right now it doesn't seem like a good idea to like go and like try to find people. Maybe that seems out of reach. The thing you could do is give yourself examples. Like I said, like a book, go pick up a book. You could, and if you're not a reader, there's so many resources on YouTube. One specific one, there's really good videos on Alan Watts. He's, I guess, sort of a philosopher, but he was a really good speaker. And there's all these like videos on YouTube. They're very encouraging, very inspiring. There is one on abundance. So that's one thing you can go do right now, is like go search that Alan Watts video on abundance. And you could also do meditations. There's meditations out there, meditations on abundance. So giving yourself the influence of an abundance mindset from somebody who's maybe created a resource. Podcast, another great example. So the third step to live more in abundance is, and this is something that you can do for yourself, is like an actual practice, is you can write down where in your life you're feeling abundance. And it's sort of like a gratitude list. That's a common one that people sort of journal down, is like, what am I grateful for? Well, in this example, to cultivate more abundance, we're going to write down the things that we feel abundant in. And I know I hear the like challenges of like, oh, well, I'm not abundant in anything. Well, you're abundant in something. And, I challenge you to push past that thought process. And like, if you can't think of anything that you're abundant in, I mean, one thing is like oxygen, right? We're never like lacking of oxygen. Hopefully, if we, continue to treat the world and earth poorly, maybe we will be. But right now, hopefully, we have enough oxygen to not have to think about it. So that's an abundance. There's an abundance of oxygen. But where else in your life? Do you have good friends? Do you have, maybe, even if let's take it like a negative example, maybe you're unemployed right now and you have an abundance of time. You have an abundance of time to like either find a job or create a job or work on something. And there's always something that you can think of to be abundant in. And I think trying to do that and to think about like where the abundance is really helpful. And that leads me into the fourth step is creating that vision in your head, is envisioning abundance. And, maybe you want to be abundant in money, maybe something that you're not abundant in currently. You could sit down, you can envision yourself, and you can meditate and think about what it feels to not worry about money and to be abundant in money. And I think this is a really helpful thing that I've done in the past and has been good for me is to really just sit down, like give yourself 10 minutes, get a timer out, do 5 minutes if you can't do 10, and to just think about like envisioning more abundance or calling in more abundance into your life and just sit with it, like see what it feels like. Let yourself feel the joy of like not worrying, not living into fear, to live in abundance. And I think the more that we can do this, the more that we create new neural pathways in our head, we create new sort of thought patterns that we can then go back to. Like for me, it was easier to last week realize I was in scarcity and to switch back to abundance because I've done it before and I'm familiar with it. And it's this framework and terminology that I'm very familiar with. And being able to think about it in that way has just been really helpful to help pull me out of the scarcity mindset and back into the abundance. So yeah, I feel like this is a good ending point. There was one quote that like I heard recently, and I don't have it on me, so I can't say it, but I'm thinking about wanting to get maybe I'll put that in the show notes and the comments of the YouTube, the description of the YouTube. There's a formula out there that I was just made aware of yesterday, and it had to do with abundance. So I'll put that in the show notes so you can maybe it'll ring something true to you. But yeah, so that's all I got for you today. Hopefully this was a helpful episode, and so more working towards our purpose. You could find me on Instagram at Working Towards Our Purpose, Substack, and workingtowardsourpurpose.com. For our feedback form is up there, so you can send me a note, or you could tell me what you're thinking or question, whatever. And you could also find Working Towards Our Purpose merch. And yeah, that's all I got for you today. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being here as always. And I will see you on another episode real soon. Thanks.